Hey guys, um, I have not been very much on social media this week because I have been so super sick. I feel a little bit better today, but yeah, just coming back from the depths of darkness of sickness has taken a little bit of a toll on my body and my brain and my capacity. But it's been good. I have been pretty much flat on my back, and I've had a lot of prayer time, which has been wonderful, and a lot of time to be with the Lord and kind of be with my own self and thoughts, and that's not always good, but being with the Lord is good. And I have no idea what I would do without the village of people that surrounds me all the time. Truly, like last week when I was like, am I dying? I don't know what's wrong. And we had just come off of like our gala and just like loads of busyness, and not like normal busy, because I mean our life is really busy all the time, and I kind of thrive on that. I love that, and I really I don't know, I feel not right to say I sort of thrive in stress, but I kind of do. I really like to it definitely meets a different need for me, and so it doesn't bother me, I think, as much as it bothers other people. But like for the last long time, year and a half, just a lot of things have been compiling, and so I think my body just said like, we're all done, and that's what we did. But that's okay, and I listened to it, and my sweet friends at work were so just loving to give me some time to be able to recuperate, and like people showed up for me. One of my friends came over and spent the night at my house because she knew my kids were worried about me in the night, and so precious. And one day I was like completely out and like asleep, and I didn't answer my phone, and two of my friends and my mom were like texting apparently, and then that's when they sent one of the friends over to check because the other friend was also kind of struggling with some health stuff. So I mean, the Lord is so good and so faithful, and he's provided so many ways. Countless people have brought us meals. Yeah, I mean, all of our needs have been met, and it's been so beautiful. And then really, really hard this week, the loss of my dear sweet friend, and having to walk my kids through that because she was their teacher last year, and just, she's my dear friend's mother, and mother-in-law, and my friend's kids' grandmother, and I mean, she just had such a special place in all of our hearts. And so today we have her celebration of life, and I was thinking, I don't often talk about like walking with my kids through hard things, such as, I haven't really talked about walking my kids through last year, which not the time for that yet, but walking especially my adopted kids, my kids who have special needs and like lots of compounded trauma. I don't talk about walking with them through hard things very much because like a lot of times I want their stories to be their own stories, but also I feel like if you talk about it, then other people understand and have a different understanding of advocating for kids who have been through hard things and then experience hard things, and how to walk them through that healthily. And especially because my kids have disabilities, some of them can't verbally tell you how they're processing. Some of them can show you how they're processing by their behaviors, and others of them, where my kids who do have words to speak, I wouldn't try to put words in their mouth. Maybe I would read them a book, and or even like show them a movie about feelings or about a situation and let them see it through the eyes of someone else and then talk about it. How did that affect you? But my kids with disabilities with limited verbal ability to be able to process, sometimes I do have to ask questions and, is this how you feel? And that feeling is called this. And what you're expressing to me right now, you know, is anger, or maybe it's actually sadness, you know, walking them through all that stuff. And so I haven't really talked about it. And I think that that's one thing that I really want to do, is to be able to talk about hard things like that, because hopefully it will help someone else. Now I have a child staring at me while I'm making this video, and that's really not fun. Can I help you at any chance?
Whatever it's called.
Yes.
It's clogged.
Okay, great. Well, I will come in there and help you with that in just 1 second.
No, like our dishwasher.
You mean the dish?
Yeah, Miss Brooks trying to fix it.
Okay, great. I'll come in there in just a minute.
Can I say hi?
Mm.
Hi.
Yes, it's been so fun with all the children and all the things they have been. Hello, baby. I love you. I'll come in there in just a minute. Just take a pause on it for now. Anyway, so with the death of our friend, my grandmother passed away like a little bit over a year ago, and we had been talking up to that, like, grandma's getting sick, grandma's in her 90s, grandma's probably not going to be with us much longer, and she's going to go be with Jesus. And so my oldest daughter has the hardest time with death. Like, she has very traumatic death experience in her past. When we were living in China and we had so many babies die, like, it was just over and over and over. We had lots of practice having to deal with those kinds of things. But at that point, she wasn't exactly mature enough to be able to have like really deep connections with people that she lost. She had those really deep connections with the people that she lost initially in her life that took years for her to be able to express and tell me. So my grandmother was such a dear person to her. My grandmother, I mean, she loved my grandmother, and that made me feel so good. But through that, I learned that whenever we process things, whenever we help someone, a child, even with a developmental disability who we think might not be able to fully understand, when we, you know, believe that they can and assume competence, then walk them through that, then they can process things healthily, even if that does look like having anger or outbursts. Or, I mean, I have outbursts of anger when I'm frustrated or, you know, I mean, I'm a person and that happens, but then what do we do with that? And how do we recover from those things? And being able to model that in a healthy way is so important to me, especially for my kids who don't have the words, because I have to be their advocate. Someone has to be their advocate to help them to be able to know how to have those behaviors in the right way in situations where maybe I'm not going to be there sometime. So with this person passing away, I had really prepped for like when I was going to tell them. I had processed it myself for about 24 hours beforehand, and like had, this is how I'm going to present it. We're going to talk about how wonderful heaven is, and we're going to talk about how we can't wait to go there, and we're going to talk about how the Lord, you know, created us to live with him forever if we accept the gift that he's given us. And so after doing that, then I said, do you remember this situation? Because some things had happened leading up to it. And then I said, well, you know, she went to be with Jesus. And I had just chose to tell my 3 little ones and my oldest daughter together, because those are the ones that had the closest relationship with her. And I wanted them to be able to process without the other kids like asking questions about who she was, because they might not be able to remember in that moment. And I just, because we have so many kids, I try to let them process in different at different times, and who will process similarly or who may need to process together, then we do that together. So anyway, we talked about her, and we shared our memories about her, like what are the things that we love the most about her. And so sweet. Shan, I think I have quite a few different types of processors in those 4 kiddos. And one of my kids is a stuffer, and she immediately was like, well, I'm really sad, but she's in heaven with Jesus, so I'm super happy for her. And like didn't really have a lot of response. And I was like, okay, just accepting that that's where she is right now, and that's where she's starting. And then another one of my kids was like, I think I need to cry, and I'm so sad. And then he said her name over and over again, and he said, why, how, asking all those kinds of questions. And so we were processed that way. And then my littlest guy is just taking it all in. He's really trying to figure out what his emotions need to be. And he said, well, if heaven has streets of gold, does she have gold in her heart? And I was like, nobody, I don't think the gold's in her heart. But, just like he's trying himself to like, let's think about how good heaven is. And I had to go to a doctor's appointment yesterday. And we, of course, when we got there, all those little guys needed to go to the bathroom. And so we walked in the bathroom, and immediately the little guy goes, oh, whoa, this place is amazing. Because it looked kind of luxurious a little bit. And one of the kids said, this is what the bathrooms in heaven look like. And then the little guy goes, look at all this gold. It's like the gold from heaven. And I was like, sure enough, these are like Amazon deals right here. Like, there's no gold from heaven. But it was so precious, because even those little things, they're still processing. That was the day after I had told them, and they're still thinking about heaven. And, yeah, it was just really sweet for me to see. I actually told the lady at the doctor's office, what they had said. I was like, you need to tell your decorator she's done a top-notch job, because my kids think your bathroom looks like heaven. And legitimate, like, looks like this is what the bathrooms in heaven are going to look like. And the girl just died laughing. But last night I said, okay, well, tomorrow is the service, and we're going to celebrate her life. And, I didn't give the choice to my 3 little ones. I said, you guys are going to come. It's very important to me that, they come and learn about grieving and what that looks like, and not avoid it. I just think that's healthy. But I gave my oldest daughter the option to come, and she said, I saw like a nervous look on her face when I told the little ones that they were going to come. I said, but I'm not going to take all the kids, because I don't think it would be healthy for all of them. And she got a nervous look on her face. And I said, but I'm going to give you the option. If you want to come, you can. And if you don't want to come, you don't have to. So much trauma from death. And so I always let that be her choice. And she said, she my best friend. I have to go. And another woman who's very close to our family was also a best friend of this woman. And she said, and I go, she go, I go. And she my best friend. And I go. And oh my gosh, I had to like hold back the tears, because, so many layers for her, like so many trauma layers that she chose. She's going to go, she's going to put herself in that place, and she wants to. And also she knows that if she does that, it's going to be better afterwards. Like after we come back, and we see and we cry. We talked about, I said, it's so important that when we go and we celebrate her life, that it is okay. If we feel like crying, we need to cry. We need to grieve, because we're so sad that we don't have her here anymore. But that she's with Jesus, we can rejoice. But that doesn't mean we need to not let ourselves cry, because we have to grieve her. We have to allow ourselves to grieve. And learning how to grieve healthily, learning how to understand that not everybody grieves in the same way has been one of the most life-giving things to me. And that really started whenever I was in China and in the depths of the darkest place I've ever been in my life. And I would say, I haven't been that mentally unhealthy probably ever, ever before that or after that. And I did reach out for help, and I had lost a couple of babies to death and a couple of babies, 3 babies, to a very corrupt situation where they went back to an orphanage and just had really a terrible situation. And a child that didn't live with me but lived with someone else that was a part of that corrupt situation also passed away in that time because of having to leave the foster home. And it was just very traumatic. And at that point, I think, was the first time in my life where I ever thought, like, does God, like, is he really just? Like, does he really care? Does he even know? I mean, I questioned so many things, and I would have told you, like, I'm very solid in my faith. I'm very grounded in my faith. I trust the Lord beyond anything, but really shook me. And I went to counseling in Thailand. I sort of talked about that a little bit on one of my podcasts, but I went to counseling in Thailand, and that counselor, I always say she saved my life because she taught me how to grieve. And she taught me it was okay to grieve, and that I didn't have to be strong for anybody else, that I could break down, that I could be okay with not being okay. And but then where do you go from there? Like, I didn't want to, the fear of not being okay was not because, it actually didn't stem from the fact that I wasn't in control in the moment. It stemmed from, what am I going to do after that? How am I going to be okay in the future? Because I can probably figure out how to be not okay. I can probably figure out how to lose my mind and how to be totally wrecked. But then what do? How to get healthy after that? And so she gave me so many tools and so many books to read, and ultimately helped me to realize, like, that the Lord actually doesn't change, and hasn't changed, and hasn't forsaken me or the kids, that he does see corruption, and he will have the final word, which I was really struggling with, because I just kept thinking, like, if there's not justice taken right now, like, how can this continue on? I'm so justice driven, and I don't care if I'm right, actually. Like, I could care less if I'm right. Like, if someone doesn't abide by the truth of what is actually right, like the truth of what's right, like killing people and innocent people and like buying children and like all these things. This is like, I would say like 95% of people would say this is wrong. Like, it's the truth. I'm founding my truth on the Bible. This is the truth. I realize some people don't believe the Bible, but I do. And so that truth is right to me. And that is what I cannot handle, the fact that people would just get by with that. And it looks like they're actually winning, you know? And I don't think I'm the only person that struggles with this. And while I don't really like, actually, some people maybe would think that I do, but I don't really love confrontation. I would much prefer to have confrontation than I would allow injustice to happen. Now, I'm not a social media confrontator because that's pointless. I'm so sorry. If you think you're going to get behind your screen and confront someone about something and win because you typed faster and no, I'm so sorry. So like political things and sharing, like sometimes I'll share some of my faith things on my social media, but I'm not going to debate someone on social media about a truth because I want to talk to them face to face, and it doesn't matter to me. The other things don't matter to me. I will, if people know who I truly am, I feel like they understand and know that I'm an advocate. And the reason I don't speak out on social media about, you know, politics or what some people would define as like speaking their mind or whatever, is because it's not worth it to me. Because people on social media, they don't have a way to know my heart. People that I know and that I've built a trust-based relationship with, then I'm totally fine to have those. And if I need to stand up for somebody in person for what's right, take me to the front of the line. I will do it. But I don't believe social media is the place for that. And so I'm not going to do it. So I guess it can appear to others, if you take your appearance from social media, that I might not stand up for certain things. Wrong. Don't assume. I'm just not going to use that platform to do it, because I know myself and I will sin because I have too strong of opinions, and I don't want to lose a relationship of someone not understanding who I am. And I don't want to ever be accused of, oh, that's just another Christian, spewing their views, because that's not what Jesus would do. Jesus would sit down with you and have dinner with you and talk to you about it. And you would try to understand his heart, hopefully, and he would understand your heart. That's like the heart of Jesus, is to know people and for people to know him. And you can't do that in a screen. And I was thinking yesterday, I actually love social media because I love relationships. I am such a relational person, and I love knowing about people. I love knowing about people from like years and years and years in the past. And I love keeping up with people and seeing their children, and just knowing what their life is doing and praying for people. But like fighting on social media or debating things, hate it, can't stand it. I can't do that. So I think, yeah, everybody's different. That's just me, and that's totally fine. But I want to be a space in the future, especially I'm going to start talking on my podcast about some things that are very specific to, my life, my kids' lives, and the lives of maybe other adoptive moms who have kids from hard places with disabilities. And that space doesn't look like other disability spaces. And I didn't really realize that at first. I learned that at our mom's retreat. So the very first year God called me to have a mom's retreat for Journey of a Joyful Life, it was right during COVID, and it was when everybody found out that all the adoptions from China were put on hold because of COVID, and they couldn't go to China. And I was like, we have to find a way to not allow these women to get downtrodden, because here they were thinking that they were doing a good thing. They decided to adopt a child. They love this child. They've gone almost all the way, and they don't have their child yet. And we have to keep the momentum. We have to not let the fire in their hearts go out, and help them to know that God still sees them and loves them and knows them, and help them to grieve and process and all these things. And so I'm like, we got to be a space for that. And as I was thinking through it, we had already had 1 year of Journey School, and I was like, we can invite our Journey moms, whether they are a mom that has a biological child that has a disability, or a child that they've adopted with a disability, or they're waiting for their child, whatever it is, we want to invite them. And so at that first mom's retreat, we didn't have very many women, like 12 or 13 maybe. And I realized and I had known it personally for my own self, I thought, but it was so solidified to me that the struggles and the hardships of a mom who gave birth to her child that has a disability versus the struggles and hardships of a mother who chose to adopt a disabled child are different. And not in all aspects, like not in the day-to-day. In the day-to-day, it's, we're all dealing with cleaning up all the messes, all the normal life things, the behaviors and the, all the things. But the heart is a little different, and the way that we feel things is different. And whether or not you want to believe that or not, because I think at first I didn't want to believe that. I wanted to believe that it didn't have anything to do with the love that I had for my child. I have loved a biological child, and I have loved my adopted children, and I can truthfully say there is no love difference between those children at all. I mean, I loved my adopted children before I loved my biological children. I had 3 of them before I ever had a biological child. I didn't know any other love. Also, I had loved other people's children so deeply. When I was a nanny, I mean, one of my kids that was a nanny for just had a baby. I don't know how he did that, because he must still only be like 11 or 12. But anyway, I'm not old. But I saw the baby's picture and they posted it, and I was like, I love that baby so much. And I was just thinking, and he is not the first of his brothers that I watched and loved so dearly to have a baby. And I love those babies. Like, oh my gosh, I love him so much. And because I love him, because I took care of him, and he means so much to me, and and his brothers. And so that God just gave me that heart. I just have a heart to love. I'll love anybody's baby. And if you let me be at your birth, which some of my friends have, and I've been able to be there when you've given birth to your baby, oh my word, that is a whole nother level. That is so special and intimate, and I love birth, but just because I love babies and I love people and I'm so relational. But I realized at that mom's retreat, we have got to do something different for how we relate to moms who have given birth to a child with a disability versus the difference of the mom's heart who chose to adopt that disabled child. And I do know that some people have chosen to adopt a child who they didn't know was disabled, and the child becomes disabled because of, XYZ, or maybe they were lied to and the child was disabled before they got it, and it was disabled all along, but they didn't know. Right? There's just different things. And your heart has to process things differently. And there's a different kind of grief that happens whenever you choose disability versus whenever God chooses you to be. And God chooses it either way. He puts it on your heart, or he changes your heart when you think that you're having a neurotypical kid. And I mean, it can happen to any of us who are giving birth. I mean, none of us are guaranteed a child without a disability. And none of us, even if we think we create a baby that doesn't have a disability, anything can happen, right? You can be in a car accident, in the fraction of a minute, your child can drown, and, you have to rehabilitate that child. There are so many, 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 many things that you have to process depending on where your child from a disability came from. But I think that all those things aren't really talked about very much. We talk about, depending on what month it is. Right now it's April, so so many people are talking about autism awareness, and I love that. I love that people are becoming more aware of autism. I mean, I think everyone's aware of autism now, but autism acceptance and all those kinds of things are very important. I struggle with some of that because I think I can get a little salty about why are you not being kind to everyone? Bottom line, you should just be kind. It doesn't, why do you have to see all the disabilities? I think you should just see the person and then meet that person's needs no matter what. That is, again, it's just my heart behind it. And I love the people who are shouting their acceptance and love and participation towards and for people with disabilities for whatever month it is, Down syndrome. I tend to not be one to post or put out a lot of things about that, not because I don't deeply care. I mean, I have multiple disabilities in my home, and maybe it's just because of my capacity. I also have a fear of well, if I celebrate one, then what if I didn't realize that this month was to celebrate blindness and I don't celebrate that, and so then I feel bad about it, so it's easier for me not to celebrate anything. I don't know, it could be a myriad of things. It's just who I am. But the most important thing to me is that people see people for who they are and for who God made them to be, that they're uniquely gifted and talented and created in God's image. That's every single one of us, no matter if a doctor has labeled you with something or not. I was sitting in the Social Security office recently, and the guy doing my paperwork for my boys, because Social Security for my 2 boys with Down syndrome. How long have we lived in America and they still don't have that? It's kind of crazy. But anyway, he goes, did you tell me that your boys have Down syndrome? And I said, yes, they do. And he goes, why do you need anything else but a blood test that shows the chromosomes? And I was like, I don't know. You're the Social Security office guy. I'm just me over here, mom, trying to help my kids get more services. He was like, this is ridiculous, because I have been not approved, rejected, however you want to say it, from the Social Security for my boys, because there was not enough proof that they had a disability. Again, it's not like I'm trying to label them with something, but holy moly, I literally brought them up there to the office. My one child who is completely unable to speak, and my other child who thinks that he should be running the world. And I'm like, these are my children. They both have Down syndrome. You know, the doctors have submitted their notes that whatever it was wasn't enough. Paperwork got lost one time. I think this is our 3rd time to try to submit the documents for them. It's crazy. But I mean, this is what mothers of children with disabilities are doing all the time. I mean, I'm not special that I'm having to do this. People are doing this all of the time. And I saw it yesterday. One of my friends, a special needs mama, she's still fighting for her kid with Social Security and making sure that they have the ability to get a job and to have services for them whenever they're older. And, you know, she mentioned something about, somebody else mentioned something about, I just want to make sure that my child lives, that I live 10 seconds longer than my child with a disability. And most parents that I come across, that is truthfully the cry of their heart. Lord God, please don't let me go before them and them not have someone who loves them and understands them and can advocate for them in that situation. And so it's really just so much. And so anyway, we're gonna do a little podcast series. We're gonna call it a series with adopted moms who have kids with disabilities. And then, it's gonna be fun. We are gonna do, with that, I'm gonna interview some adoptees with disabilities. Okay, so it's gonna be great. I'm so excited. Now, obviously, when you interview an adoptee with a disability, or anyone with a disability, sometimes, you know, language can be a barrier, communication just in general can be a barrier. So we're going to do our best to help support those kiddos. Not everyone has a cognitive disability. Other people have physical disabilities. So the speaking part is not quite as hard for some of them, but I want to try to get a myriad of things because I want to make sure that we're speaking to many different communities of kids. And then the next series is going to be with moms of kids that are biological, and then talking to some of those kiddos, those disabled kiddos who are with their bio families. And I really want to talk about, you know, just the good, the hard, the ugly, all the things in all of those situations, because I think it's not talked about very much. So I have those 2 series planned out for the future, and I'm really excited because some of my babies that I fostered in China, their moms have been willing to be on our next series of podcasts. I'm so excited because I love them so much. And it's such a gift to me whenever the children that I adopt, that I fostered, whenever their parents are willing to stay in contact with me, it's such a blessing. And I don't think that people realize that as a foster mom. And maybe in the States, it's a little bit more accepted, or I don't know, maybe it's not. I should have asked that to Chelsea on my podcast with her last time, but you know, it's just different. And you want your child to be able to be healthily attached and fostered well, and to be able to go into the next family that they're adopted into and be well attached. And so there's some separation that has to happen, but at least for like the parent and me to be able to stay in contact is such a blessing, to be able to see those babies. I mean, you know, I have 3 of them that I get to see quite often because of how involved they are with Journey School. But, you know, then I have my babies in Georgia, and actually probably Georgia is like the biggest state where we have Journey kids living, the most amount of Journey kids living in Georgia. But then, you know, in the Midwest northern states, there's some, and I love having a connection with those guys. And so just all over the place, it's just really important to me to be able to know about my kids and how their lives are going, and pray for them and just not lose that connection. So I'm super excited about all of those things. And then the third series that we have planned is talking to adult adoptees. And so I'm going to try to do, because we're going to have in that second series, and the first and second series of talking to adoptees with disabilities on both like on the ones that were adopted and ones that are biological, kids with disabilities. And then the next series we're going to talk to, so the third one, we're going to talk to adult adoptees, and not specific with a disability. Maybe most kids adopted from China had some sort of disability label on them, but that doesn't mean that they had a disability. China had to do that in order to be able to get them adopted. At a certain point, they made a new law, and so anyways, but for, you know, all purposes of like appearance and ability right now, the kids don't have a disability. So I'm so excited because I have some really great people that we're gonna interview, and I can't wait. But I really want to hear from the adoptee community, those without a disability and those with a disability, but also those who are culturally different. It's not talked about very much. Recently I was talking to a mom who has a daughter adopted from China, and we were talking about, her daughter is in high school, and I was talking to her about, you know, like, how does she identify her culture? Like, does she feel Chinese? Does she feel American? Has she felt confused? You know, what are the things that she experienced? And, you know, the mom, she did stellar job, just such a stellar job helping her daughter to have the ability to kind of like be culturally whatever she needed to be at whatever time she needed to be, and then take her to counseling whenever she needed it. And I mean, this woman is precious and so lovely. I'm so grateful to know her. And she gave me a lot of insight, you know, about how her daughter abused things. But just hearing recently some voices of some Chinese adoptees who didn't feel like that they were able to truly be Chinese, or maybe they struggled with wanting that because everyone around them, they were adopted into a really small community and everyone was the same color and the same ethnicity, and there was like not even a Chinese restaurant in the town, and you know, just different things like that. I feel like isn't really often talked about. And so I think that it would be a really great space to be able to just hear that and hear their hearts on that, and how did they maneuver through those really hard times. Maybe they're still maneuvering through those hard times, but to see culturally, and not just from Chinese adoptees, hopefully from some other adoptees as well, but I just have the most connections with Chinese adoptees. But I really long to have a space to be able to talk about that openly, and to just give insight to others on what it's like to be, you know, a mom working through this with our kiddos, what it's like to be a child, you know, living through some of this, and also what it's like to be an adult who's now having to process or heal or, you know, express themselves because their parents didn't really understand that that was such a need. You know, they had the heart, they wanted to go in and adopt, but there was not a lot of training on, you know, trauma, or that adoption in and of itself equals abandonment, and that child already has trauma. Not to say that they're labeled trauma their whole life, but there has to be some acknowledgement to that in order for the child to move forward. I truly believe. And how you parent a child has to be different. It has to be different. You cannot parent your adopted child the same way you parent a biological child. You just cannot. And and if somebody wants to sit down with me and talk about that in person, I am totally happy to do that. But it is the most unhealthy thing to think that your adopted child can have the same kind of discipline, they have the same kind of redirection. It's not healthy. And it can be the most damaging thing in a child's life. And so the same with disability. I have seen it firsthand in children with disabilities when they are disciplined or parented in the way that we would discipline or parent a child with, no cognitive disability or physical disability for that matter. It's not okay. It doesn't work in the same ways. And so, it's the same as anything. All of us are individuals, and we should all be seen as individuals and all be approached with the same truth of God's word that is the best fit for us as an individual, not compromising the truth, but compromising the approach, changing the approach. There's no compromising, but the truth is the same. And that's what the groundwork is. But then how we approach the situation does have to be different. And so, yeah, I want to talk about it, and I want it to be open dialogue, and I want people to be able to express themselves and kids to be able to express themselves. And I long for people to be seen and heard and understood. And I also really, really love that we can do that without compromising the truth. And I think that's important. And not everybody feels that same way. And so I want to be a space where we can talk about it. So anyway, that's coming up. I didn't really expect to put this on our podcast, but I'm going to do it, even though there's not like a pretty background, and there were some birds chirping, so hopefully that's aesthetically nice. And also, I didn't get dressed up for you. It's Saturday morning, and normally on Saturday mornings I feed all my kids and then a brunchish kind of meal, because we sleep in on Saturdays. And then after that, they all go play, and I come outside and drink my coffee and eat my breakfast. And so I'm just sitting here with my coffee. And it's just been on my heart all week to say something about this. We didn't put out a podcast this week. We hadn't actually planned to put out a podcast this week, but one of my sweet students, who has listened to every single podcast, he's so sweet, texted me, and he's like, "Where's the podcast? Why have you not put one up? Am I missing it? Are you not going to do it?" And so I told him, we haven't really planned a podcast for this week, but then I was like, well, I might just share my heart a little bit and put that on here, because I think these things need to be talked about. But also, I was going to say, if anybody who listens to our podcast feels like somebody who would benefit from some of these conversations, please share it. And also, if you want to add in the comments, like, hey, I'd really like to know about this, or this is an experience I've had and I don't know anybody who's had it, and so maybe we can connect some people, maybe we can talk about some things that need to be talked about that aren't talked about very much. I would love to help to facilitate some of that. So please, please, please make a comment about it. I would love to hear, if it resonates with anybody. It's resonating with me. I'm loving it. Also, because I think that sometimes people just stay quiet because, we get behind our screens, we get at home, and the loudest voice that we hear is the one that we feel like is the truth sometimes. And sometimes we forget that there's other perspectives or opinions and people that want to share truth. And so I want to be that. So join us, come alongside, comment, share, and I'm excited about what's to come. Have a great week.